I was sitting in my engineering lecture, half listening to the professor, when the sound of a loud bang echoed through the hallway. At first, I thought it was construction noise or someone slamming a heavy door. But then a second bang followed, sharper and more terrifying than the first. That's when the entire room erupted into chaos. Someone screamed, "Gun!" And in an instant, panic spread like wildfire. Chairs scraped across the floor as students jumped up, diving for cover. My heart slammed against my chest as I slid under my desk, pressing myself against the cold floor, trying to make myself as small as possible. A group of students rushed toward the large metal cabinet at the front of the room, pushing and shoving to squeeze behind it. All but one managed to fit. He was small, thin, and clearly terrified. The others, driven by pure survival instinct, forced him out. He turned desperately toward the professor's desk, begging for shelter. Our professor looked just as frightened as the rest of us and said there was only space for one. Then, horrifyingly, he pushed the student away. The boy stood frozen in the middle of the classroom, not moving, not breathing properly, just standing there, completely exposed. For nearly 20 seconds, he didn't move at all. Then suddenly he grabbed his chest, gasping for air. He collapsed to the floor, his body shaking violently. Someone whispered, "He's having a heart attack." No one moved. Not because we didn't care, but because we were all convinced the shooter was still nearby. Helping him felt like signing our own death warrant. So we stayed hidden, watching helplessly as he struggled, and then stopped. I had never witnessed someone die before. I never imagined I would see it happen in a classroom. Under my desk, I shook uncontrollably. My thoughts raced. What if the shooter comes into this room next? What if this is how I die? I tried to control my breathing, but it felt impossible. My chest was tight. The air felt thick. Around me, I could hear quiet sobbing and whispered prayers. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time lost all meaning. Then my phone started vibrating. First I ignored it. Then I heard phones buzzing all around the room. Slowly, carefully I pulled mine out. Dozens of messages. My roommate. "Are you okay? There's a shooter on campus." A classmate. "Stay inside. Lock everything." Then my mom. "Please tell me you're safe. There's a shooter at your school. I'm so scared. Call me as soon as you can." That message hit me harder than anything else. I typed back quickly, telling her I was okay, even though I didn't feel okay at all. Sirens eventually filled the air. Police and campus security stormed the building, shouting commands and clearing rooms. When they finally reached our classroom and told us it was safe, my body nearly collapsed from relief. We stumbled into the hallway, which looked like a war zone. Students crying. Others sitting against the walls, staring into space. Some shaking. Some screaming. Then the truth came out. There was no shooter. The gunshots were from a campus security officer who accidentally discharged his weapon while responding to a false report. But none of that mattered. Someone had died. And our campus would never be the same again. Later that night, I went to my brother Mark's apartment. He attended the same university, and I needed to see him to know he was okay. But when he opened the door, something felt wrong. He wasn't shaken. He wasn't emotional. He wasn't even surprised. He was calm. Calm. And that's when I realized the real nightmare wasn't over yet. I thought the worst part of that day was already behind me, until I noticed my brother wasn't reacting like someone who just survived a tragedy. When Mark opened the door, I expected him to look like me. Pale, shaken, barely holding it together. Instead, he looked normal. Not relieved. Not emotional. Just neutral. "Are you okay?" I asked. "Yeah. I'm fine," he said casually, stepping aside to let me in. His apartment was a mess, which was unusual. Mark was always neat. But empty coffee cups, scattered papers, and half-packed bags were everywhere. It looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. Yet he didn't seem tired. We sat down and I tried to talk about what happened. Every time I brought up the classroom, the student who died, or the lockdown, he changed the subject. "It's over now," he said. "No point stressing about it." That response didn't sit right with me. Over the next few days, his behavior grew stranger. He started leaving rooms to take phone calls. If I asked who it was, he brushed it off. "Just someone from class." He began avoiding the humanities building, the exact place where the incident happened, even though he had a class there twice a week. When I asked why he skipped it, he snapped at me. "Drop it." Okay. We had never talked to each other like that before. Mark and I had always been close. We shared everything, secrets, fears, stupid mistakes. But now it felt like there was a wall between us. And the more he pushed me away, the more I felt like something was seriously wrong. One night, I heard him on the phone in his bedroom. His voice was low and tense. I tried to ignore it, until I heard 3 words that made my blood run cold. "It wasn't supposed to." Froze. My heart pounded as I stood outside his door, trying to process what I just heard. Wasn't supposed to, what? Wasn't supposed to scare people. Wasn't supposed to hurt someone. Wasn't supposed to kill anyone. My mind raced through every possibility, and none of them were good. I quietly went back to the living room, turned on the TV, and pretended I'd been watching it the whole time. A minute later, Mark walked out like nothing happened. But I couldn't forget what I heard. From that moment on, I knew I had to find out what was going on. I started asking around. Casually, carefully, talking to classmates who knew Mark. That's when I learned something that made my stomach drop. Mark had been spending time with a group of students known for pulling extreme pranks. Not harmless pranks. Not jokes. The kind of pranks that went too far. That involved fear, chaos, and sometimes danger. The more I learned, the worse it got. Fake bomb threats. Staged emergencies. One of them had even been suspended before. I couldn't believe Mark was associated with people like that. I confronted him. "Are you involved with those guys?" "Yes." He instantly got defensive. "Why are you asking?" "Because they're dangerous. You're overreacting." But he didn't deny it. Instead, he shut down completely. That's when my gut told me something terrifying. Whatever happened on campus that day wasn't an accident. And somehow my brother was involved. I was about to discover the truth. And it would change how I saw my brother forever. A few nights later, I went back to Mark's apartment, determined to get answers. As I approached his door, I heard voices inside. He was arguing with someone. They didn't know I was there. I stayed quiet, my heart pounding as I listened. "That wasn't supposed to happen," Mark said. A voice replied, "We told you this could go wrong." Then I heard the words that changed everything. "It was just supposed to be a prank." My legs felt weak. A prank. They kept talking. They talked about how they had staged the entire active shooter scenario. How they wanted to create panic as a joke. How they thought it would be funny to see students scramble and hide. They never expected campus security to respond the way they did. They never expected a gun to fire. And they never ever expected someone to die. But someone did. Ryan, the student in my classroom, died because of what they did. Felt sick. My own brother had played a role in someone's death. I stood there, frozen, unable to move, barely able to breathe. When the other person finally left, I walked inside. Mark took one look at my face and knew. "What did you do?" "Yes." He tried to explain. He said it wasn't meant to go that far. That they were just messing around. That they didn't think anyone would get hurt. But none of that mattered. Someone was dead. And part of the blame belonged to him. I felt like I didn't even recognize the person standing in front of me. This wasn't the brother I grew up with. This wasn't the kid who always did the right thing, who stood up for others, who never crossed lines. Somewhere along the way, something had changed. I was torn in half. One part of me wanted to protect him because he was my brother and I loved him. The other part of me knew I couldn't let this go. Ryan's family deserved the truth. Justice mattered. And silence would make me just as guilty. I spent nights awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head. Every scream. Every gunshot. Every moment Ryan struggled on the floor. I asked myself the same question over and over. What kind of person would I be if I stayed quiet? The answer terrified me. So I made the hardest decision of my life. I went to the authorities. I told them everything I knew. It felt like tearing my own heart out, but I couldn't live with myself otherwise. Telling the truth felt like betrayal, but what came next was even worse. The fallout was brutal. Mark was expelled from the university, along with the other students involved. Some of them faced criminal charges. The campus was thrown into chaos. News outlets covered the story. Students were furious. Parents demanded answers. And my family was destroyed. My parents couldn't understand why I turned Mark in. They said I ruined his life. They said I should have protected him. They blamed me for everything. Mark stopped speaking to me. Completely. No text, no calls, no messages. I went from being his closest sibling to someone he wouldn't even acknowledge. My parents barely looked at me. I felt more alone than I ever had in my life. Everywhere I went on campus, I felt eyes on me. Whispers followed me down hallways. I felt like an outcast, like I was being punished more than the people who caused the tragedy. I tried to remind myself why I did it. Ryan didn't deserve to die. His family deserved justice. The truth mattered. But that didn't make the pain any easier. I lost my brother. I lost my parents' trust. And I lost the family I thought I had. I tried to move forward, focusing on my studies, staying busy, pretending everything was fine. But nothing felt fine. Every night, I replayed the moment I told the police. The look on Mark's face. The silence that followed. I wondered if he hated me. I wondered if he'd ever forgive me. I wondered if my family would ever understand. Months passed. No contact. No closure. Just silence. Then, nearly a year later, my mom called. Her voice was cold. She told me Mark had been sentenced to 4 years in prison. Then she said, "If you had just kept your mouth shut, my son would still be free." I didn't say anything. I just hung up. And sat there, staring at my phone, wondering how telling the truth made me the villain in my own family. I thought the pain was over, but the emotional consequences were just beginning. After that call, I felt completely broken. I wasn't just grieving my brother's mistakes. I was grieving the family I once had. The laughter, the support, the feeling that no matter what, we were on the same side. Now I was alone. Friends tried to comfort me, but it wasn't the same. They didn't understand what it felt like to lose your entire family for doing what you believed was right. I questioned myself constantly. Did I make the right decision? Could I have handled it differently? Should I have stayed silent? But every time those doubts crept in, I thought about Ryan. About how he stood frozen in the classroom. About how he clutched his chest. About how he collapsed and never got back up. And I knew. I could not live with myself if I had stayed silent. Justice isn't always rewarded with peace. Sometimes it comes with loneliness. Sometimes it costs you everything. I still don't know where Mark is now. I don't know what kind of person he's become. I don't know if he hates me, forgives me, or doesn't think about me at all. And honestly, I'm afraid to find out. But I do know this. I chose truth over comfort. I chose justice over loyalty. I chose what was right, even when it destroyed my world. And as painful as it is, I would do it again. But there's one final update that changed everything once more. It's been almost a year since I last spoke to Mark. I don't know where he's living now. I don't know how he's doing. And I don't know if he ever plans to reach out. My parents still barely speak to me. They see me as the one who ruined their son's life, not the one who tried to do the right thing. I carry the weight of that every day. But I also carry something else. Not happiness, not closure, peace. Because I know I didn't let a family's loss go unanswered. I know I didn't protect someone who caused harm. I know I didn't choose silence over truth. And sometimes that's all you can hold on to. Life doesn't always reward honesty with forgiveness. Sometimes it punishes you. But I believe that in the long run, even if I never see it, the truth matters more than comfort. Ryan deserved justice. And even though it cost me everything, I would still choose the truth.